What's up, everybody? My name is Alec. This is White Whale Comics. With me, not as always, but a pleasant replacement, is Matt, the boy who had 7. What's up, buddy?
What's up, dude? I'm excited to be here, man. It's a good book we're going to talk about, and it's kind of cool to hang out with you when I get the opportunity.
Yeah, most definitely. John is feeling a little under the weather, so he bowed out. So it was going to be all three of us, but it's cool. We're gonna have fun anyways.
Get better, John.
Yeah, I said to him like, better this week than next week, right before Baltimore. So get that out of your system. He is in the chat though, already causing trouble. He said he's not the excuse for running late tonight. And what do you know? We were just on time. So maybe you are always the reason. We also have Comic Books NYC. What's up, Kavi? Given that incredible AOK to I Got Issues over there at New York Comic Con. Wish I was there with you guys. It's looked like a lot of fun. And TJ the Slab Dragon Watson says, "Look at that, on time."
What's up, TJ?
Universe X also joined the chat. People trickling in. Thanks for joining us tonight. So we are talking about Powers of 10, number 6, but we're kind of gonna, I feel like, probably touch on the whole series, but kind of focus on this last issue. So obviously, as always, this is going to be full spoilers. So if you have not finished or read at all this series, maybe no, not Siri. Maybe read it and then watch the replay, or if you don't care, we'll give you a poor recap, or at least I will. So first, overall first impressions of the series. What do you think?
My first impression was I was blown away. It was awesome. And after finishing it, I'm thinking we're being set up big time, which we'll get into later. But I feel like there's more to this than what's on the surface.
Yeah, for sure. And one thing that, like, off the bat, I give Hickman credit for, I feel like X-Men books for a long time kind of been treading water with this theme of, like, the humans hate the mutants and we're trying to fight against the government and all this stuff. And
right.
like the last 4 or 5 new X-Men series were that first same setup issue. And like immediately this was like, okay, this is something new.
Yep.
And I feel like in the end it really succeeded, but even if it hadn't, I give him credit for that, because it was like, okay, you're trying something new with the X-Men that we haven't really seen. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I definitely agree that he took something that was old and he made it brand new, so you get this whole dystopian feeling, just like you got from Days of Futures Past. But and obviously they've talked about human versus mutant and all that, like you said, but he put this twist on it that made it important and that gave it this weight that you're like, oh my gosh, what's the future going to look like now that Charles has changed a little bit,
Yeah. And like to your point, like, I don't think you can avoid the humans versus mutant thing. Like, if you just have mutants in a vacuum, it's going to be boring. So you have to have that dynamic. But the way he decided to do it was just, I don't know. It really impressed me off the bat. The first issue really knocked my socks off, and then obviously House of X 2 was the one that everyone like realized, like, oh, he's changing things.
This is big time
with Moira. So for those of you who don't know, House of X 2 introduced the idea that Moira McTaggart is an Omega level mutant who has the ability to reincarnate in kind of like refresh time, which is buck wild, just like a crazy idea. And like really kind of like hard to wrap your mind around to a
Yep.
point, because it's like she retains her memories, but everything else, like she literally resets her timeline.
Yep.
And Comic Books NYC said, I loved it. I can't believe how satisfied I am with the entire House of X Powers of 10 maxi series. I'm actually sort of excited for 5 new #1 issues, which is cray cray. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Like, I was going to bring that up as well. You know, they do these events or even like refreshes, and they're like, here are all these new #1s. And I'm always like, yeah, I'll buy 1, maybe 2.
Yep.
I'll buy all the #1s at very least, because
I hate it.
yeah, they got us, man. But
Yep.
hey, listen, something I preach on this show all the time is, if you make good comics, I'm gonna buy your comics.
Good point.
Yeah. And like, so if you put out 6 good series, my wallet's gonna hate me, but me as a comic fan, I'm gonna be really excited, because I don't think all of them are gonna be great, but
yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, it's worth a shot though. After what we got, that's the point, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like, to the point where a couple of them, like, just looking at them, I definitely would not have picked them up.
Yeah.
But because of this, I'm like, okay, now I want to see what's going on.
Yep.
And maybe I'll be surprised, hopefully. And that would be awesome.
When I finished issue 2, I thought masterpiece. This is our modern day masterpiece right here.
Yeah.
And what's crazy is that I love Absolute Carnage just as much, man. So there's 2 Marvel masterpieces in my opinion. But I saw the previews of the different books coming out, the New Mutants and all that jazz, and I'm thinking maybe I'll still pass. But after finishing House of X and Powers of 10 today, I thought, okay, I've got to go take a shot at all of them. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Universe X says, I like that he's making back issues relevant. Yeah, he's definitely like tying in a lot of stuff that, not even like big stuff either. It's like real, like the Phalanx and the Omega Clan. So it's cool that he's definitely like digging into the history of the X-Men to do it. And no one asks which of the new series has Hickman on it. The regular X-Men book, I believe, and New Mutants, which is here you go. Comic Books Honestly beat me to it.
Gotcha.
New Mutants, which is Hickman and Brisson. So he's writing 1.5 series if you look at it that way.
I've always been a New Mutants fan, so I was gonna get that one for sure.
Yeah,
but now I'm trying all of them, man.
For sure. That's great. I've always, since I was a kid, loved the X-Men. They've not been at their finest lately, so it's good to see them kind of relevant again and telling good stories with these characters that I think are very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And to your point, bringing up Charles Xavier, it's still to me like kind of interesting about who he is now, because it's Phantom X's body theoretically with Charles's mind in it.
Yep.
And besides Phantom X telling us that, we don't really have any proof of that.
It's true.
Who the heck knows what's going to happen with that? But also, even if it is true, who knows what that's doing to his mind? So there's all sorts of interesting directions that can go in.
Yep. Well, and even to add on top of that, in Moira's journal, as she was talking in Powers of 10 here, she's been manipulating him. And I don't know if you want to get into that already.
Yeah, no, let's dive right in for sure.
She's talking about how she's been holding things back from him. When she shared her past with him, she held some stuff back. And then she's kind of been manipulating him to get him to stop being the old Charles that we know, that was all full of hope and that believed that humans and mutants could exist together, and to kind of twist him to this guy that could become the guy that we see in the story,
Yeah. And I thought, like, when this started, this issue, it starts with the same scene with them on the bench from House 2, which, I remember before the series came out, they advertised that page and they said, like, this is the most important page in X-Men history, and you're like, okay, sure, whatever, like that. But like,
it is.
Yeah, they lived up to it, man. Like, good for them for like having the guts to advertise something so boldly and really follow through with it. But I thought that was an interesting move to just like basically reprint the same pages we've seen before. But like it worked from a storytelling standpoint because like if it just jumped into the future stuff with the Phalanx and then went back to the park, yeah, like we remember what happened, but you don't remember as well as if you just read it.
It's full circle, man. Brought us right back to the whole point of it.
Yeah, so I thought it was really interesting that we got to like finally see the conclusion of that scene in like a different way.
Yep.
Very, very clever storytelling, unsurprisingly. As a bit of a sidetrack, what do you think about Hickman's use of like those big like graphic design pages with the text and the imagery and the things you need to translate with ciphers and stuff like that? Does that add anything for you?
Like what you used for your thumbnail this evening?
Yeah. The Many Lives of Moira McTaggart.
You know what? It adds to the mystery to me because every time I pick up an issue, there's obviously something like that in it. And I'm sitting here thinking, and I'm like, and there's so much. It's so big. This new world, this new story that he's creating that I'm getting a taste of it, and it keeps like it's something dangling in front of me. I just want more. So it works for me by getting me interested, like giving me just a taste, you know?
Yeah. And he clearly had all 12 issues as not only an idea, he had it all done. Yep. And he sprinkled this stuff throughout so well to kind of lead you along and keep you interested, because he knew exactly where he was going. Yep. So he was able to lead you along the way with these things in a way that I think made it more interesting. Like, I'm not a big fan of block text in comics because if I wanted to read block text, I would read a book.
Right.
But like it works in small doses, especially here.
Yeah, and you needed it. You needed it, man.
Yeah, because the story really is so dense. Like, it would have been an extra 12 issues to tell all this stuff in comic book storytelling.
I was thinking about Tom King trying to write this, man. It'd probably take like 200 issues.
He's a wordy guy.
Sorry, John.
So we get this scene to wrap up. Now that we've been talking for 15 minutes, let me actually give a recap of this final issue. So we get the scene with Moira and Charles on the bench. Jumps to the future, and she is telling him this next scene, which is the librarian character talking to Moira and Wolverine about the Phalanx coming one last time to basically destroy the rest of the world and take the knowledge of mutants back to a black hole to create a new god, more or less.
Yep.
And the librarian is going to become part of that. But he says, like, to Moira, like, we can't kill you because then you're just going to reset the timeline and then I won't exist.
Right.
Like, we won't have that knowledge.
Right.
So Wolverine quickly dispatches the librarian and then kills Moira to reset the timeline again, which is when she then goes back and tells Charles, like, hey, I'm showing you all this, we lose. Like, every time we lose. Which is what kind of is the impetus for Charles to change his tune of, like, humans and mutants need to get along and let's create this Krakoa society.
Yep.
So what we've seen this whole time for why he's doing this is finally makes sense.
Yep. The ascension concept, which Kavi mentioned in the chat, is huge, I think, to the future of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You have this idea since the beginning of mutants, Homo sapiens versus Homo superior.
Right. And now we have this new series.
That's right. What are they called? Homo. I wrote down notes, man. And now I
Yeah,
go
you have to. Hold on.
Novissima or something like that.
Yeah, which is what the librarian is.
Yeah, and so it's this idea that humans, once again, realize that they're fighting mutants, whether it was the peaceful way and Charles' way and the old way, or this new way where the mutants are like, this is our world, we're taking over. The humans stood up again and mixed with these robots and became this new race.
Yeah, and that was one thing I thought was really interesting, where the librarian said, like, you've been worried about fighting robots this whole time. They've been a distraction. Like, we've always been the real enemy.
Yep.
That was
Big time, man. I mean, the humans have literally won again. And that's the whole point of this thing, that the humans continue to beat you, you know?
Seawood in the house, Super Russ, Comic Man, Andy, thank you guys for joining us this evening. So yeah, that was the first like kind of chills moment for me of this issue, which not the last.
Yep. Here's an idea that I have, and I don't know if you want to talk about this yet, but I think there's a lot being said here that isn't being said. And what I mean by that is you have this new race and this librarian at the end of time, like the day that he literally tells Moira and Wolverine, tomorrow the world's gonna end. You know, and if I let Moira live and come with us, then we stop her. And at the beginning of that scene, you see like the animals attacking the librarian, and he's like, "Come on, guys, you're a joke compared to me." By the time you even think, I already had found 1,000 ways to beat you. Yeah. But yet Wolverine kills him so quickly. I wonder if he lets it happen, because as a human, and this whole idea of freedom that's in this panel, he realizes that he's about to lose his own freedom.
Right, and he has a line about the cage too, where he says, right, like, I forget exactly what the line is, but something about the bars of the cage and how like you can change them or whatever. But yeah, and he right before that he outlines the whole thing to Moira, and he's like, "Hey, what would you do about this? If I told you all of this, how would you change it?" Because yeah, maybe it's not the outcome that he really wanted, but he knows that in the current world, like it is the inevitable outcome, but it's not really he knows it's not the right thing.
Yep. I mean, it just got me thinking, man, this human, the librarian, this ultimate species doesn't like the fact that he's losing his freedom to become part of the phalanx and all this jazz, right? And neither do the mutants. They're in a cage. You know, he's telling them, you guys are the last mutants alive and you're in a cage too. And so both of us are caged and both of us have lost our freedom. And I'm going to go ahead and let Wolverine kill me and Moira restart it and do something. That's kind of the vibe I got.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. I mean, it's like subtle, but it's also like pretty straightforward. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, that happens. And then, so that's in the year 1000. So then that's when it comes back and Moira says to Charles, like, hey, this is what happens. We lose, blah, blah. And Charles decides to change his tune about how he's fighting this quote unquote war, and decides to start Krakoa. Now,
which I think is I think I don't know, when it's all said and done, I think that's the mistake that they make. The fact that Charles changes his tune, that I personally believe that's going to be when it's all said and done, and we have this whole story that Hickman puts together. That's the reason why they lose every time. But I don't know. It's just this feeling.
And then we get this really interesting scene with Moira and Charles and Magneto where they're saying like, hey, and eventually we're going to have to tell everyone, we're going to have to bring this precog destiny to Krakoa. And she's like, no, because she messes with me and like she's going to tell everyone everything. They're like, they're going to find out eventually. And so like, we can wait till tomorrow, or we can wait till tomorrow's tomorrow, but it's going to happen.
They're going to find out.
Which I thought was a very, very cool scene. And then,
hey, mate, what's up, Kachoo?
And then we get this I felt like end of Return of the Jedi scene of like fireworks and everyone celebrating.
Right? Did you see Eagle jumping, man?
And then just like Magneto at his finest right at the end of this issue, which was maybe one of my favorite parts of this entire series.
Yeah.
Where Magneto is talking to Charles. And so a couple issues ago, we found out, which I want to talk about this as well, is that mutants are now reincarnatable.
Yeah.
With the help of like this whole series of mutants combining their abilities, including Gold Balls, who is
it's crazy, man.
Who I'm so glad that they like actually are making him relevant, because I think he's a great character. I mean, he's like comic relief, but like anyway.
Without him, it wouldn't work.
Gold balls are actually eggs that they can, put DNA into, and they hatch into mutants, and they have all their memories and whatever.
Yeah.
So Magneto says, basically like, that he will die for it, and if I fall, then then you will raise me up. I will show this world what a real mutant is.
Yep.
And Charles says, keep talking like that, and you're sure to elicit a response. Magneto says, I'm not ashamed of what I am. Let them try to stop us this time. And that's like, man.
Was it episode? Was it issue 2 where he has that show-stopping moment at the end, and he says like something about we're going to show them the real gods that are going to worship now?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, exactly. So and that's just like that's pure Magneto to me. It's just this badass like, I am better than everybody. I am more powerful than you, and I'm going to show you that I am the true king here.
Yeah. What's great about Magneto is that he's not a villain in the sense where he loves evil or anything like that. He becomes a villain because he so believes in his people and wants to protect them so much that he's willing to destroy humanity for them,
Yeah.
And so you see that come through here. And I mean, that's what Charles is becoming, though. Charles is losing his identity and this idea of hope and belief that humans and mutants can exist. And he's becoming like Magneto.
Yeah, I think for like the last few years, they've kind of created this idea of like Magneto used to be here and Charles used to be here. Mm-hmm. And now they're kind of coming to an overlap. They're not like really shifting to one full side or the other, but they're kind of like meeting each other in the middle a little bit.
Yeah.
But they still kind of have their own like arms stretched out to their side.
Yeah.
But they're finding common ground, which I think is very interesting, because I think that's like the actual key to success a lot of times, is not being so stubborn and staunch in your like extreme views.
So polarizing.
Yeah. Whereas like sometimes there's middle ground to be found, and people just kind of refuse to do it because they want to be right more than they want to succeed.
Yep. And that's what we're going through in the world right now, man. I mean, that's like reality. See, comic books teach us good lessons, man.
Yeah, sometimes. So I want to jump back to the whole reincarnation thing, because as awesome as an idea of it is, what do you like really think about it as far as adding to the series is going forward? Because I kind of have like a qualm with it, and I wonder if you do too.
Every time I get to this idea of reincarnation, and it always leads to darkness for me. So I may be totally different than what you're thinking, but for me, it just adds to this whole idea of taking away from humanity, life and death. There's something beautiful in the way that we begin life. We got to do what we got to do while we're alive, and then we die, and it's the end, and we leave a legacy, or we leave an imprint on the future generations. But because you can't do that anymore, because you can stay alive forever, I mean, and that's my question: is Wolverine that we're seeing then, has he been reincarnated a whole bunch of times, or is that Wolverine?
Or is it just Wolverine because he can't die?
Right. So like it leaves you this idea of, man, like what's going to happen now? Like you can't stop them. They're, I don't know. What do you think?
No, I mean, I think we're kind of like coming to a similar conclusion from different angles. For me, it's just like, yeah, so theoretically, no mutant can die now. So that takes away a lot of storytelling drama because, what was it, House of X4, where everyone died in the spaceship?
Right.
That issue was the best issue of the series. It was like the most exciting movie I've ever seen. And then the follow-up issue was fascinating, but it was like, oh, so basically none of that happened.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So when you take like, there's already this ingrained thing in comic books and movies and TV shows where like the main characters usually are not going to die because they're your characters.
Mm-hmm.
So there's already kind of like this lack of drama where you're not really worried that your favorite character is going to die.
Right.
But then you literally take away that option, and like, where's the drama now? Where's the risk for these characters?
Zero risk, zero drama.
Now, obviously, if one of the mutants dies who is doing the reincarnating, then all of a sudden everything's off the table.
It's off the table. Yep.
John makes a good point. Made me question, how do we know that these new versions are what Charles says they are?
See, that's exactly how I feel, John. I was even wondering, I don't know if you ever got this vibe that the librarian was Charles.
Like a reincarnated 1,000 times Charles?
Yep.
Could be.
I really got that idea, and that's why at the end here, he's like, yeah, we this is not working out. We're losing again, period. To humans who have become this godhead through robots and the phalanx and all this. It's crazy.
Yeah, there's like definitely a lot of layers, and they did a really interesting job of segueing into these new series without being like I feel like a fan's gonna be able to pick up any of these new number ones and not be totally lost, I hope. But at the same time, like they've set up this new world. Yeah. Where like this didn't end on a to be continued, I guess. What does that mean?
Mm-mm. I just there's so many questions that are left unanswered that that's why I'm excited about all these other series, Right. But
yeah, if they had wrapped everything up in a neat bow at the end of this, I would have been bummed.
Yeah. But Hickman, I mean, look at all his past writing. It takes forever through this story and that story and this series and that series, like it's great. It's great.
Comic Kid 84 said, yes, I felt the librarian Charles vibe. He's blue because he spliced genes with Apocalypse, who's basically immortal. That's an interesting theory.
I like it.
So that's another question is like, when do they start? They've already introduced the idea of splicing genes to create new mutants with Rasputin and the Cardinal in the future, which they kind of like, those characters kind of disappeared, which I was bummed about because I thought Rasputin and Cardinal were very interesting. So hopefully they come back.
Me too.
But that's definitely a possibility where like, at what point do they start splicing genes and create abominations?
Right. Because that's what's going to happen.
Also, I think I know who the Red King is, but I don't know if it's actually like known yet. Does that make sense? Then at the end of this, you still don't know.
Yeah, I didn't. Who do you think?
I think it's Kitty Pryde.
Dang. Okay, you just went over my head, man.
Which is it, John? John says, which is one of Alex's favorite tropes, Marvel splicing their characters together in new ways. Like, I like Amalgam. Dark Claw is cool. There, I don't know. I might be making a leap, but there was a preview image of like Marauders 2 or something with Kitty Pryde on it, and she has like a red red insignia on her chest, and I don't know.
Dude, oh man, I just threw away my previews. Gosh, you're right. I thought you were gonna say Jubilee for a second.
Oh man, I would love it. When I first saw this cover for issue 6, because of the trench coat, I thought it was a Jubilee for a second. I was really psyched, but it's Moira. Kavi says, I was at the X-Men panel at NYCC, humble brag. Hickman said that the main X-Men new title series will be a series of one-off adventures where any X-Men member from any team can show up. So, yeah, watch out, Jubilee. Here she comes.
Sweet.
That'll be cool. Yeah, I think they're doing some like very interesting.
Humble brag with that 100.
Yeah, I think they're doing some really interesting things with some of the series, like with X-Force, where they're doing like they're splitting them down the middle, and it's like the strike team and then the espionage team, which Jubilee crossed the blade, which is basically what happened. Yeah, Jubilee the vampire.
Yep.
I don't think she's a vampire anymore, though. I think she was unvampired.
I came back into comics and like, wait, Jubilee's a vampire? Like, I don't even know what happened, man.
Yeah. Hey, they had to do something to keep her relevant. I don't think that was it, but
I agree.
Like I've been waiting for them to be like, oh, by the way, Jubilee's an Omega level mutant, and she can like create a force that's powerful as the sun or something. You know what I mean?
Yes, there you go.
That would be great.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, it's funny. I feel like we kind of like blew through a lot of this for a series that was 12 issues long, but
yeah,
it really speaks to like how focused it was. Like there wasn't a lot of as much, like there were a few issues where it's just like, okay, these are clearly setup issues, but there's no wasted space. There was no time where it was like, I don't really know what to do here, so I'm just going to do this. It was all very purposeful.
It's true. I'm going to throw out a Harry Potter reference. Just like J.K. Rowling wrote the last story first, the last battle between Harry and Voldemort. Yeah, then everything was already there, man.
Nice.
But I honestly think you're right. He had it all down. He had it all ready.
Comic Books NYC said, yeah, all the teams in the other books are set, but the main X title will be a free-for-all with characters coming out in and out throughout. He said there will be the next 2 years matched out. Wow. 2 years.
Cool. Yep, I'm telling you, Hickman, the long game.
But,
we're in the long game.
You could say the same thing about Tom King and Batman, and they ripped him off the book before he finished. So if it stops selling.
It's true. If they do what he did with House and Powers, where every issue counts, and it's
but with an ongoing, are they going to be able to do that? Are they going to be able to keep that pace?
I don't know.
Comic Kennedy 4 said, I thought we'd get a bigger reveal in this final issue. I wonder if we did, though. And it's just like we were talking when Matt was saying earlier, like, I wonder if it was more hidden.
Yeah. I'm going to seriously go back and read all 12 issues again.
Yeah.
I know I'm going to see more.
I really want like a single trade so I can just sit down and like in my bed and just like flip back and forth and read it through. But who knows when that's coming out? If anyone knows when that's being released. Comic Books NYC said, I thought Moira's sixth life was a big reveal. Yeah, I mean, there were definitely like, there wasn't that moment where I like wanted to drop the book and like go running out of the room where I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. But at the same time, it was like everything in the issue was important.
Yep. I think the fact that the council is called the Quiet Council, it's referring to or playing with this idea of lying to the X-Men.
Yeah.
And the fact that they promised Mystique that they'd bring Destiny back, but Moira's like, there's no way that's happening because then they're going to find out we always lose. That's all going to play big time into the future.
Yeah. And what do you think about the whole Sabretooth thing? We didn't even touch on the whole trial of Sabretooth. Because I thought that was like pretty cold.
It was cold because those laws didn't exist for him to break them yet.
Right. It's
You know,
like we're making these laws
after the fact.
For you, for the
Yep.
law, for the thing that we think you did that was distasteful. We're going to make this law, and the punishment is that you have to live in stasis forever.
You know, I think no one said earlier when Sabretooth gets out, he's going to be pissed. And
yeah, and he even said that where he's like, yeah, you should kill me because if I ever get out, like every single one of your descendants will be murdered by my hands.
Yep.
And Sabretooth means that, like knowing Sabretooth, like he's not going to rest until he does that.
Yep.
But also, you know, it's funny. Charles says this thing when he throws him in stasis. He's like, "Oh, we should make sure this never gets easy for us." But it seemed pretty easy for him to do it then.
Yeah.
Like he did not have any pause.
Yep. And ever since Charles came back with Phantom X's body, he hasn't been the Charles I know, and he hasn't been the Charles I like.
Yeah.
You know, he was always the guy with hope, morals. His compass led him. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, there's places where it doesn't happen like that, but now he's just this cold, calculated dude.
Well, even like if you have you read that astonishing run where he becomes even the very first panel where you see him come like embody Phantom X, the expression on his face is so well done because it's like, oh, are you crazy?
Yep.
This is not the Charles.
And I'm like, that's what I thought. That's not Charles. Charles didn't come back. Something else came back into this body.
Yeah.
You know? Oh.
And you know, he refers to himself as X now, so it is it is quite literally like at the very least a different personality of him. Whether or not that is an affected personality or you know an unintentional personality, I guess that remains to be seen. And I'm sure Hickman has a plan for it, but could go anyway.
Yeah, I think Wolverine's going to play a big role too, man. If he's there at the end, you know, of her six.
I think you're right. Like clearly he does because there he is, but I hope they don't oversaturate him like they tend to, because I think Wolverine is one of those characters that works better. Like he can be great in a solo series, but in a group dynamic, he's not the leader. You know, Cyclops is the leader, Kitty Pryde is the leader, even Emma Frost is a leader, but Wolverine is like he's the leader because he's popular with fans. He's not the leader because that's what his character is.
Yeah, his personality.
So I hope they kind of put him more in a backseat role like he should be. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't know what everyone else thinks.
I'm down with that. I kind of like this whole idea of him working in the dark, maybe. At some point, I really think that the whole keeping this from everybody is going to backfire. And Krakoa has actually, like we saw in this issue, become a cage.
Yeah.
And it's stolen their freedom. Instead of giving them the freedom to think and fight and act for themselves, Charles
they're now trapped there.
Exactly. And I mean, Charles is so snobby that he thinks that him and Moira can do it all, you know, with Magneto and Apocalypse and this Quiet Council. So I don't know. That's just I think it's going to be great to see how this all unfolds.
For sure. And I think like that is one thing where, you know, the whole idea of Homo Superior is like they've always had this thing where they just struggle with hubris.
Yep.
Where they think that they're better just because they're more powerful.
Yep.
But they're just as flawed as humans.
Yep.
But it's, you know,
and they forget that they are humans with a little extra. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And I think Charles comes at it in a way in the past where it almost ends up being the same thing as Magneto, because they're both making mistakes, they're both flawed, and their ideas are flawed.
Grey Matterhawk says, I want to see where the others come on, like X-23 Colossus, and what Apocalypse is doing with Excalibur. TJ Slabdragon says Apocalypse is going to be the problem. Yeah, you know, you would think so, but at the same time, like that was another really interesting moment for me where when Apocalypse finally shows up on Krakoa and all the birds kind of flock to him, and he's like, yes, I already know this place. Like this is so maybe he's not. Maybe this is just like what he's always wanted. Who knows?
It is. I mean, that's what he said.
Yeah. And the way he's doing Mr. Sinister is fascinating. I don't know. Like everyone is a wild card right now.
They are, everyone.
Which I guess going back to my point of like losing the drama of people not being able to die, you have drama you trust.
Yeah. I honestly think the only person that you see them for who they are is Magneto.
Yeah.
And it goes back to you like loving him in this story. He's always been that dude.
Yeah. Right. This is not not a Magneto we're not familiar with. This is the Magneto that we are familiar with. Where he's just like,
yep.
Yeah, I'm the best. I'm the greatest. You can't mess with me.
I love that guy. He's so cool.
So, Comic Books NYC also said apparently the Fallen Angels title are characters who aren't happy on Krakoa, Batty Braddock, Psylocke, X-23, and Cable. That's interesting. Yeah, because I didn't really know what that series was about. That was like one of the ones that I was kind of, it was a question mark for me. Keep it Thorough Comics in the chat. What's up, buddy?
What up, Thorough?
So, yeah, you know, when they first announced the new series, it was, you know, very early on in this, and I was like, oh, I'll buy a couple. But like I said, now this is over, I'm definitely giving them all a shot, which I'm both happy for and horrified about. So they're probably going to be like, the first issue is probably going to be like $8 a piece or something crazy.
I know, man. I hope not. You know, when
Even $5, it's like, that's so much money.
It is. And I've been cutting back so much. I went from like 40 titles a month. I don't even know what I have now, but I've cut so many out, man. And it's hard.
The last couple of weeks have been pretty hefty weeks for me. I only bought 3 books this week, so I was pretty proud of myself.
This was my lowest week, and I got like 12.
I was trying to be like,
it was more it was good. Say that again.
I'm just trying to be more selective. I haven't bought like hardly any DC at all. They're just like not doing it for me right now.
Yeah. The thing that kills me on DC, man, and this is off topic just really quick, but I'd like to have complete runs. And so because I've started in some stories are just atrocious, like Nightwing. It was so good when it started, and now it's atrocious. But they got Jurgens to get back on it to try to fix it. And so I just keep getting it because I want to have the whole thing. And I just keep
in the middle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. What do you see happening in the future, man? What do you think is going to come of all of this?
I think that like this is not sustainable, right? Because this is not. We can't have this as X-Men stories ad nauseum. They have to reintegrate with humans at some point to make X-Men what the X-Men are. So it's just a question of how that happens.
Yep.
Does it implode from the inside or does it implode from the outside?
Yep. I agree.
And are the drugs that they're promising, are they really what they're promising? Are they going to do what they say they're doing?
Yeah. And even if they do, how many times do we read stories about, you take all the bad stuff in life out, what happens? You get the sick, twisted version of life.
Right.
Bad stuff is there for a reason.
Yeah. And like, obviously we want our loved ones to live as long as they can, but there gets a point like, and you see this in like sci-fi movies and stuff sometimes where like disease has become so eradicated that people are like 170 years old and they're just like, like they don't want to be alive anymore. They're just like these crippled messes of like, they can't do anything. They're just like human vegetables.
Yeah.
But it's like, oh, well, we can keep you alive, so let's just keep keeping you alive.
Keep going.
And I'm not saying like we shouldn't fight to cure terrible diseases because, that bring a lot of pain to people. But yeah, it is that question of like what happens when there's like, I guess, less consequence for certain things. I don't know how to phrase it, but yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm thinking. It's exactly what I'm thinking. It's too good to be true, all of it.
Barbarian Kung Fu says that's when the zombies show up.
Yeah. All I need is a samurai sword.
The best weapon against a zombie for sure.
That's right.
Going to drop it on classic. I don't think about the price of new comics, man.
It's because I'm trying to decide if I should get new ones or old ones, TJ.
Yeah, right. Like, do you want to? That's always a struggle. Like, what do you want more? Do you want to read or do you want to collect? Because it's hard to do both.
Yep, it is. It really is, man. Every week on Wednesday, I get my books and I try to read them that day. And that normally doesn't happen. Probably 90% of the time it doesn't happen, right? But when I do, then I jump into other books. Like right now I'm reading Tomb of Dracula, or I was reading Apocalypse. And it's just like you read it for a while and then the new comics come out and then I have to put it down. And then by the time I get back to it, I forget what I was reading. Oh, man.
Yeah, and I've found myself like intentionally not reading books the day they come out, like waiting for 2 or 3 issues because I feel like I oftentimes like reading them in chunks better.
Yeah.
Then I start thinking like, well, why don't I just wait and buy trades?
Yep.
Or like get trades from the library and buy older books
Yep.
Because it's the spec. It draws you in. It's like, oh, I don't want to miss owning this book because it might be worth $20 someday. But like, really, who cares? A $5 cover price. Like, what kind of profit am I worried about?
It's true. It really does kill you, man. And the other thing is, though, which I'm okay with, is being on top of the story. Like, if I didn't read this tonight, I wouldn't be able to have this conversation with you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially when you're ingrained in a community like this. 10 years ago when I was just reading comics on my own and not really talking to anyone but like 1 or 2 of my friends about them, it's much different than like when you can't tune in to see your friends on YouTube because they're going to be talking about this book that you're like behind on.
Yes. So many days I've had to like come over here, put you and John on, give a thumbs up, and then put it on mute and do stuff because I haven't read the book yet and I don't want to be spoiled. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, thanks for the views.
Hey, man, I got to get you those hours, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's about like all I really have to say about the series at the moment. I'm very excited to see where it goes. We're clearly going to be touching on them as they come out. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
One last question. I mean, who was your favorite? I guess you already answered that. Magneto. Is he your favorite character in the whole series?
I mean, obviously what they did with Moira was fascinating. I don't think that she was like much of a personality though.
Mm-hmm. She was a plot device almost.
Yeah. I thought Mr. Sinister was very amusing, but was, not in it very much. So I can't say that he was necessarily my favorite. So yeah, I'd have to go with Magneto.
Yeah. I think for me, Charles is the most interesting because he has the most mystery and he gives me the
absolute willies.
The willies, man. So
yeah, I said that from the beginning. Like he there's something about him that's like very uncomfortable and unnerving. The way they draw him and the way he acts, and it's very well done and very intentional, clearly. But yeah, there's something funky.
I know you guys mentioned this one time I was watching you guys, but he reminds me of look at me going blank. Mr. Fantastic and Absolute Carnage. What's his name? He's got the big old helmet on, and the Maker. The Maker. There you go. He reminds me of the Maker. This calculated, super intelligent being from the future.
Yeah.
I just wonder, man, if somehow that's the dude that came out instead of and got Phantom X's body instead of Professor X. You know?
Can you imagine? Barbarian Kung Fu says gold balls rules. And like the fact that he never takes Cerebro off, that could very well maybe giving him Charles Xavier like powers.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, who the heck knows?
It's craziness, but probably not.
But it's interesting that like I don't think it's an accident that they make us question these things.
Yeah. That's the genius of Hickman. I mean, just the fact that he gave both you and I with the willies. Maybe that's the perfect word. He wrote it like that. And there's a reason for that, man. And I, as some person that writes, it's amazing.
For sure. Keep it thorough saying, give me a big thumbs up. Thank you. Appreciate it, brother. I will never ask for those, so I appreciate what other people do. Thanks everyone for joining us. I missed you, John. Hope you feel better soon. Thank you, Matt, for hanging out. This has been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, man.
Don't hang out enough on here, but love to correct that.
Let's do it.
You have anything you want to plug before we head out?
Friday Night Fights, Comic Gories is happening this Friday at 5:30 Pacific Standard Time. So I'm going to have Comic Head 84 on there because he won the last episode. And then we're going to have some cool guys, Biggie Shaq. We're going to have a Super Review and Bubs Comics.
Very nice.
Come join us for that. And then really soon,
that show's a blast.
Really soon, we're going to have, I don't want to call it a loser's bracket, but we're going to have like some of the guys that didn't win come back on. So you're going to have to come on.
Chance.
Yes. Man, so many people message me and they're like, Matt, can I get on again? Please. But there's so many people that haven't been on yet.
Yeah, right.
To do in between, like, do a grudge match or something,
Yeah, that's why I haven't asked you again, because I would love to do it again, but it's like oh, well, I was just on. Like, I was one of the first people on, and I blew it. So I
don't even know how Bake the Snake won 3 weeks in a row, man, because there were some books he should not have beaten, and he did. So it was a blast.
That's the beauty of the show, is that like any book can win. It's not about like what is the bigger book, or it's just like what the chat likes better at the moment. So it's
it's true, man. And it's what you find, like Comic Head last week. He didn't even he didn't even make it with the timer. So we had to DQ him, and he still comes out and wins the whole thing, So it's fun, man. It's fun. Thank you again for being one of the first on there, because I couldn't have had this success without you, man.
Oh man, it was an honor and a privilege. It was a lot of fun. I'm glad to be a guinea pig with that.
Yeah.
Next week, we don't have a guest yet, but John and I will be back a couple of days before Baltimore, and we're going to be doing the J.J. Abrams Spider-Man 2.
Sweet.
We kind of like have been talking about maybe not always doing issue ones, because it's kind of like really put us into a corner some weeks of like just reading books that we're not really interested in. And I think it shows, and we're like grumpy about it. So we're trying to kind of select books that we're like a little more excited about, try to keep it a little more positive. I mean, don't worry, I'll still kill things dumpster fires, but I don't want it to be every week.
Nice. Are you going to Baltimore then?
Oh yeah, I'll be there.
Oh man.
John and I are sharing a bunk. It's going to be a heck of a time.
Dude, have a blast, man. That's so cool.
Yeah, actually, I was going to Baltimore before this whole thing. So it's been like an interesting thing to be like, oh, now like this person's coming, this person's coming. Like, we've got all these things going on.
It's happening. Everyone's coming because you were there first.
Yeah. So everyone's following me as usual.
I love that thing.
All right. We're going to sign off. Thanks you for joining us. Check you all next week. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, John. Anyway, even though he's not here anymore, I think he probably went to bed. Rest up, feel better, and never turn your back to the ocean. All right. Bye.